Texas has pulled a pretty big pin in vouchers, and it's going to start coming up in the 2026-2027 school year. And today I want to do a deep dive. All right. So we know that there's and the numbers are hard on this, and I'm going to give you a lot of data. So get ready. All right. Get ready for the data dump. There's around 57 million children in the K-12 space nationally. Around 57. It shouldn't be so hard to figure out what the exact number is, but you're going to see down. We don't exactly know. It's a little hard, but around 57 million. And we are running an experiment on them right now. I mean, I really think that's what we're doing. And I don't think this is the first experiment. I mean, No Child Left Behind, et cetera, et cetera. We try to do a lot of things that we hope are going to improve education for all children. I mean, globally, that is what we're trying to do here. I mean, globally is not right the word. I mean, nationally, that's what we're trying to do. And we've been trying to do. I think most people want to have better educational options and want to improve education for all children. Really tough. But what we're doing with school choice right now is an experiment. There's not consistent accountability. There's not consistent guardrails, and no honest answer yet to the most basic questions of, does it actually work? All right. But I want to tell you where Texas is, and I want to make some predictions. And I'm going to start with Texas because they've done something pretty bold. But I realized something, and I'm looking at our producer, Elizabeth's producing today, everyone. And I was sitting here thinking about school choice as a concept, right? I said, I got to go back to my lawyer days a little bit, and I've got to realize that the definitions are really important. Okay, so we've got different types of school choice now. And I'm not talking about like the historic school choice in your own schools. Like you can choose a STEM program. You can go choose this elementary school, like within a single district. I'm talking about school choice of types of schools. So we have traditional public schools. This is the baseline, right? It's typically funded by local, state, and federal tax dollars, property taxes often, and it's open to, by law, this is the one that's open to all students in the geographical area, and every state has a public schools that covers every inch of their geographic boundary, right? So there are public schools for every geographic boundary in a state, right? And it's governed by school boards, right? Now, in most cases, these are elected. And it's subject to FOIA requests, sunshine laws, things like that, open meeting laws, standard, and they do a lot of standardized testing. They have full accountability requirements, no tuition. All right. Makes sense. All right. Public charter schools. Now, charter schools are public in the terms of they're public, but they're not really public. I mean, they're fully taxpayer funded and there's no tuition fee, but they operate under a charter, which is a contract, right? With a state or a local authority that gives them flexibility. This is important. Gives them flexibility in like the curriculum, staffing, and the structure of how they do things. And the whole idea was we need a more flexible model. We need something that can bend for the local community. We need something that can be nimble and adjust. I don't know why traditional public schools aren't allowed to do the same thing, but they ain't. They have a lot more guardrails and a lot more rules and regulations on them than typical. Like charter schools are literally meant to be experiments, right? And they can recruit states outside of the traditional attendance zones. They do not have to follow all the rules as a traditional public school. And man, they're probably governed or controlled by like an appointed board, not elected. And like who appoints them? Typically the person that filled out the gigantic book that's required to get the charter school approved. Like they have to fill out all this paperwork and do lesson plans, all this data, and then they start up and they'll have a board as an approval process, but they're not subject in most states to Freedom of Information Act. Enrollment is typically by application or lottery. Now, of that 57 million, there's about just under 4 million students right now that kind of go to those traditional charter schools, right? Then you have magnet schools, right? Which are public schools that are really specialized, focused, STEMs, arts, language, things like that. All right. And these were originally created in the 70s. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but magnet schools, I think most of us have heard about that. Then you have vouchers, like traditional vouchers, right? And we're going to see a lot more of that today with Texas. We're going to talk about this, which is a voucher is a government issued certificate. Think about it like a check, right? Now, for you young people, Elizabeth, do you do checks? Have you even seen a check? Have you ever written a check?
Yes.
Okay. So she's young, but I don't write checks. I'm sure somebody around here does, but it's essentially a check that the family can use to go pay a private school's tuition, or at least a portion of that tuition. And the dollar amount is typically, a fraction of, it's not in all cases, or in any case really, like the entire tuition. So the parents or the guardians still have to cover whatever the delta is between the voucher and whatever the tuition is for that private school, right? And the private school receives these public dollars. They're public dollars. They're still funded by the same sources. Typically, they're still funded by property tax. Maybe though, if states have big voucher programs, I could see in the future they're funded through sales tax or other ways, right? But it's still taxpayer money, right? And they like to claim, and I look, I'm like I said today, I'm lawyering up with everybody, right? They, I don't know who they is, the people that are advocates for voucher programs will claim that they target low-income families or students in failing schools. Now I'm pausing because the effects of vouchers have not shown that that's actually the case. Okay, but we'll dig into that. I'm just trying to give you definitions, right? I'm just trying to give you definitions. Okay. Then you have these things called education savings accounts, but not like the education savings accounts like that you do when you're trying to save money for your child's college tuition. And it's not a it's like, is it a 521 or something like that? The IRS lets you save money and you can save it tax-free, and then you use that money for higher ed, anything after K-12, right? But these are education savings accounts. And this is kind of an evolution of a voucher. And instead of a check going directly to a private school, the state deposits funds into a government-managed account that the family controls, right? So money can be spent on a menu of approved educational expenses, maybe tuition, maybe tutoring, therapy, curriculum, transportation, technology. Look, the funny thing is Florida, I'll dig into Florida later, I think, is the Florida savings accounts apparently don't like me into this. I'm going to do the research on it, but I heard from a lot of Florida school districts that people were trying to use their education savings accounts to go to Disney World as a field trip. Yeah, me too, man. Like, can I use some taxpayer money to go on a field trip to Disney World? Disney World's cool. You know what I mean? And so we gotta, understand that they can use them for different things and they have to get approval. And the other thing about these is somebody's managing this. And all that money, millions and billions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in that account's earning interest. And the management company's taking a fee. Okay, so now you have taxpayer dollars going to a fee for somebody to manage it. Somebody's got to manage it. And then people can use it for, like a menu of different things. Okay, so that's like an education savings account. But you can use it for tuition to go to a private school, which kind of close to a voucher, but not quite. All right. We ain't even close. We're not done yet. Right? Like this is what I was trying to think about with school choices. It is complex out there, right? And I had to kind of, for my own edification, get an understanding of it. So now the next one is, let's go with tax credit scholarships. Now, private businesses or individuals may donate money to a nonprofit scholarship organization. In return, that business or person can receive a tax credit, meaning they pay less taxes, right? And then the nonprofit uses those donations to fund private school scholarships. I have not seen any of these funds be used to support public schools. Why not? Why can't I use a tax credit to support my public school? Why can't I get it? Why can't I make a donation of $5,000 to my local public school and get a tax credit? I'm going to have to dig into that. Why don't we leave a note? Because I don't know if that exists in any state, but I'm very curious. So if anybody knows that that's being done in different states, hey man, email us, let us know. But it is funny because when my daughter, before I found Jesus, my daughter went to private school because, that's what you think you do as a couple young couple, that are lawyers, you're making a little bit of money. And when we moved her to the public school, we committed, I can't say we fully did this, but we committed to using the tuition money we were paying to the private school to give to the local public school she attended. We didn't do it dollar for dollar, but we did write some big checks to them, like donated some things. I don't know if it was dollar for dollar. I don't think it was. So maybe we owe the local public school some cash. I think I do. I think I owe Houston High down the street some cash. I got to check with my wife. Is because I know we said we were going to do it. I know she wrote some checks. I just want to make sure we did it, right? So But we didn't get any tax credit for that, right? But if I donated it to the local foundation of the local public school district, maybe we would have. Okay, anyway, so tax credit scholarships, which are in about 24 states, I think, about 24 states last I checked. Okay, so, but every one of these programs, by the way, if they're not annual state, they are going to be annual state, or at least a version of them at some point. So just get ready. And then you have tax credit ESAs, which is a hybrid model of this tax credit scholarship and the educational savings account. So you get like a hybrid. And then you have this other school choice, which is open enrollment across the entire state. So even if, remember we said traditional public schools represent a geographical boundary, and that's where those students come from. So if it's in Shelby County, you can take students in Shelby County. If you're in Katy ISD, you can go to Katy ISD or whatever. Orlando, you can go to CPS, right? But now in a lot of states, they're opening up and they're saying, even if you don't live in that district, maybe you can go to a district across the street, and that's starting to occur. This doesn't have anything to do with private school involvement. This is not a voucher. The funding simply follows the student as it does in every public school. But now you don't have just a choice of a charter school or a private school or a homeschool. But now you can pick a different public school. Okay. This is growing in popularity too. And so competition is here. It's going. So then you have homeschools. I think we get that. What a homeschool is, which of the parents are homeschooling it, or a group of parents in some cases are kind of educating their children together. I think last estimate's right around 4 million children nationwide. This was a bump after COVID. I think it's going to continue to grow, right? And then you have another micro schools. Woo! That's a mouthful. Micro school. What's a micro school, right? A micro school is like a more of an informal learning environment. I always kind of consider them kind of like Montessori schools, but I don't know if that quite fits it. Montessori school could be a private school, I guess. I don't know. But it's typically like a handful of families sharing a teacher or a tutor, kind of similar to homeschool, but they're going as a place together, right? They're legally classified, I think, as a homeschool or a private school, depending on the state. But it is going to grow rapidly. Micro schools are going to be a big thing. They became a big thing during COVID. They're still here. They're not going away. They're going to grow this. And it's a hybrid of a charter school, private school, homeschool type thing. And I think that ESAs, those educational savings accounts, will be used to fund this. I don't know about vouchers yet. I think it'll be state by state, right? And so then you got virtual online charter schools. Think homeschools, but more organized, and it's organized by a charter school and it's virtual. And some public schools and private schools are doing virtual schools too, so just online. Then you have hybrids, which are all kinds of craziness out there. And I've got a table that we can add to our eBlast on this. So if you're not on eBlast, get on our eBlast. If you want the graphs and the charts, we'll send that to you and like the national poll. That's the way to do it. So get on the email list. You'll get more dope stuff.
And follow our Instagram.
Okay. So, I don't need, hold on. I don't want to talk about this. I don't understand social media. I don't want to be involved in it. Okay. We'll let Elizabeth handle that later. Okay. Let's get into a little deep dive on Texas. And I think Texas is really important because Texas didn't happen in a vacuum, right? It's just kind of leading the nation on this. And right now, again, man, somewhere around 57 million children, and that number is down 40. Look, I got different numbers, but somewhere, let's say it's 57, and then there's 49 in public schools. That means there's 10 million in these other schools, but I'm not, these numbers float and they're weird, right? But we do know that traditional public schools enrollment is going down every single year. Now that's multifaceted. Some of it's birth rates, some of it's population movements, but one of the biggest drivers is this school choice and all those different options they had that they didn't have before. And Texas is on that. So the National Center for Educational Statistics is showing that through 2030, public school enrollment is going to continue to decline, right? And this is, of course, because the school age population is shrinking, but also choice, like we just said, right? Okay. So I want to kind of keep framing a little bit of the national stuff for you. So in 2022, Arizona became the first state to use a universal voucher, which is kind of leading us to Texas, right? Meaning that any family, regardless of income. So remember, we talked earlier, It's designed for low income. Well, Arizona said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's good for one family, it's good for all families. And so regardless of income, you could take public money and use it for a private school. Man, just saying that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I was always taught and thought there are some things that are just public goods. And I always thought that education was that public good. It's a public good, which means we shouldn't be making money on it. We should just be doing the best thing possible. Now, I get the school choice movement, which is, it's not as good as we want it to be. People can nitpick anything. They can tear down anything. There's always somebody to point down that it's not good enough. I get it, right? But we'd like to improve it. And so we're going to do charter schools. We're going to put up vouchers. And so Arizona, use it for whatever. Now, before 2022, the programs in Arizona were mostly targeted at low-income students or children with disabilities. And Arizona blew the door wide open. Florida followed. Then the dominoes started to fall, right? And so when I say are we ever going to go back to monopoly of school choice? Nope. Zero. This is my first prediction. No way, Jose. Never going to happen. Why? Because once a monopoly is destroyed, I couldn't find any examples of the monopoly going back, right? Ma Bell used to have all the phone business. Not anymore. You know that NASA used to be a monopoly. NASA. Well, they were the ones firing rockets into space. We don't have that today, man. Do we really think corporations now are not going to fire rockets into space and ask NASA to do it? Nope. Once you get rid of monopoly, it just doesn't go back. And so the monopoly is over in Arizona. What kind of the start? Well, look, I'm going to chase rabbits, but it was really Louisiana was the first one to really get neck deep in charter schools. Then you go back to the 50s and school choice. Anyway, the door's been opening for about 75 years. It's finally been kicked in now. I think is we've had a lot of little steps, but now it's just kicked in, right? So today, March 26, there are at least 17 states that have universal school choice programs. By next school year, roughly half of all students in the United States will be eligible to receive public money to leave their public school. I'm going to say that again. Next year, 2026, 2027 school year, half of all students in the nation will be eligible to receive public money, that's your taxpayer dollars, to go to leave public schools, to go somewhere else. All right. Now, I want to give a quote because this is the future ed at Georgetown University. I sometimes forget to give all the sites, but I think that one's important. Go look that up yourselves, all right? Because I had to check it twice. And public schools, as we know, are funded on a per pupil basis. So every child that walks out the door takes dollars with them. I think the national average last year was just over $14,000 per student when you kind of put all the different programs, state, federal, local, lunch money, all those things together was around $14,135. Some districts more, some districts less, right? But all that money then goes and leaves. Now, mind you, if the school is getting $14,000 from the state and the voucher is $10,000, the state is going to save $4,000 when that student leaves because they're not going to pay that $4,000. And then the private school gets the $10,000. But $4,000 of that dollars does not go to education. It's not like the public schools get more money to provide better education with fewer students. They lose the money, so they, hence, self-fulfilling prophecy, have less money to go and crush it for the student. So when the money leaves, it affects everybody, right? Now, we also know this. The children that have been leaving are the best and brightest typically. Not in all cases, but if you're a public school, you absolutely get to pick who goes there. I've gotten arguments with people who go, well, they can't discriminate. How do you know? It's a private application process. It's a private lottery. They have limited seats, just like charter schools, by the way. They have limited seats too. Are they really going to take the children that are the most problematic? It doesn't fit. It doesn't even sound like it makes sense. I mean, if you have a company, you're going to want the best clients. You're going to want the best employees. You want the best students to be out of school. You want the ones with the best test scores, the best athletes. It's illogical to think that people that have limited seats are going to take the hardest, most difficult, the people that need the most, and literally children, the children that need the most help. And I think we've got to keep that in mind because we need to help all 57 million children to ensure they become like awesome citizens of the United States. Like that's the goal. Whatever awesome means to you, that could be it, right? Well, okay, but so we're lowering. We have less money to support the children at public schools, the ones that need it the most, and all that money's pouring out, right? Okay. Now let's get to Texas. Dun, 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 dun. The largest voucher program in American history. That's what I'm telling you right now, okay? And so in 2025, the Texas legislature passed Senate Bill 2. Go check it out. Governor Abbott signed it, and in February 26th, so just a few weeks ago, applications opened for what is officially called the Texas Education Freedom Accounts Program. TIFA? TIFA, is that right? Texas Education Freedom Accounts Program. TEFAP. That's a mouthful. TIFA, I guess. I don't know. I like acronyms, but I don't have one in this case. So here are the numbers. Let's start with the numbers, and then we'll talk about the impact. Let's talk about the numbers. All right. 5.5 million students in public schools in the state of Texas. All right. The program launches in the 2026-2027 school year with a budget of $1 billion. That's with a B. That's got a lot of zeros on the end of it. I know for a big state like Texas, $1 billion doesn't sound like much, but for a poor kid from Lakeland, Florida, $1 billion is a lot of money. All right. So $1 billion. Now, that's year one. I'm sorry. Year one is expected to serve about 100,000 students, and most families will receive $10,800 per student per year. That's 85% of the statewide average per pupil funding. So not the full thing. Like I think it's 10,800 times 1.85, which is probably, well, more. I'm not doing the math right now, but it's probably like 14 or 15,000 bucks. Right? So it's more. So the public schools are losing that money. 10,008's following them to whatever school they want to go to. The one thing I will say is different than other voucher programs that Texas did, which is pretty awesome, is that students with disabilities can receive up to $30,000. So that makes a lot of sense to me because they have more needs. And if we don't take care of them now, we're not getting the tools to become awesome. I want to give them the tools to be awesome. Right? So they do have a $30,000. I don't know what disability is defined as down there, but that. And then they have homeschool families can get $2,000. That one I don't get. That one I don't get at all. So they can get a voucher of $2,000, but they were already homeschooling. Maybe it's for people that want to homeschool in the future. They get a little oven, a little something. I don't know if micro schools are going to be a part of that, but they get $2,000. Okay. So here's where it gets interesting. I mean, if it's not interesting already, here's where it gets interesting. $1 billion year one. Now, according to the Legislative Budget Board, this is like a Texas official analytic body that looks at their budgets. The cost is projected to balloon to $6.2 billion by 2028-29. $6.2 billion, then $7.9 billion by 2030. That's not an opponent's estimate. That's not my estimate. That's the state's own math. So if they keep going what they're doing, it's $1 billion is going to turn into $8 billion by 2030. That is some ching-ching. That is a lot of money. Now, that money is leaving traditional public schools. So it's official when it hits $8 billion. Public schools then are no longer a public good. Okay? They're an ancillary object in Texas. And you got to decide whether or not you think that's a good idea or not. No sunshine laws, no FOIA, no elected boards. I don't know. I'm going to get into both sides of it a little bit, but I'm pondering here because ultimately, if it helps all the children, now this voucher is only going to help 100,000 right now. And glad to see that some with disabilities are going to be covered in that. All right. So for context, Arizona's program was initially estimated to cost $65 million. $65 million. Sounds very reasonable. And it ballooned to $700 million and contributed to a $1.3 billion shortfall in Arizona. So it went from $65 million to $700 million, right? So the projections of it going from $1 to $7 billion in Texas actually seems conservative if you use Arizona as a template. So it's going to go up. Once again, the government can't do anything cheaper. So these things are going to blow up. So, and Texas is doing this much bigger, much faster. So the money in Texas can be used. So I wrote this down. I want to get it right. It can be used for school tuition, tutoring, therapy services, transportation, textbooks, technology, and up to 10% of the reward as in curriculum for homeschoolers, which is that $2,000, right? And it runs through a state-controlled digital payment platform called Odyssey. Cool. Sounds cool. Parents never touch the cash directly. So it doesn't like go in their pocket and it goes straight to approved vendors, which I know why they do this. There was a lawsuit. Oh man, I don't have it written down, but there was a lawsuit that said it was unconstitutional to directly give them the money to give to the private school. So there's a reason why this is that, and it was to get around a constitutional challenge. I don't know if this has been challenged constitutionally. I'll check next, okay? But that's why they did that. They did that to circumvent a U.S. Supreme Court case. And I'm sorry, I just don't have the numbers in front of me. Elizabeth, do you know it right now off the top of your head?
No, I don't.
Ugh, you're supposed to know these things. Okay, but I know why they did it that way. And so that's just a structure issue. All right, but it is safer. All right, so let's talk about the uncomfortable data and who is this actually helping and who isn't it. So now let's talk about the data from what other states is telling us, because Texas didn't do it first. They watched Arizona, they watched Florida, and the evidence is not flattering for the program's state goals. It's just not flattering, right? And that's the thing is like, can we be scientists? Like, can we do our research? Like empirical evidence and stuff? I know, look at what other people did and like try to do things better. I don't, it's just an idea. It's just a concept. It's just a concept, right? So I know I'm kind of a smart aleck. So the Texas State Fiscal Analysis projects that 80% of TEFA applications will be students who already attend private schools. We've already seen this. This happened in Arizona. This happened in, I think there was a study out of New Hampshire also, that New Hampshire or Rhode Island it said the same thing. The money does not move students into better schools. Like, remember the whole experiment of school choices. We want to get the kids in better schools. They're already, 87% of them are already in private schools. It did nothing to better any schools. It just moves money from left hand to the right hand. Okay, so let's call a duck a duck. If it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck. You know what it is? It's a duck. I'm just saying, it's just my thoughts, right? So meaning that this program is designed and sold as a pathway for families who couldn't afford private school, but it's projected to primarily to fund a subsidiary for families who are already paying for private school tuition out of their pocket, which I'm sure is nice for them. I'm sure they'll take the money, but it did not do what it was intended. And I don't like that. If you want to call it a duck, call it a duck. Don't call it a duck and it's a sheep. All right. It said it was designed, and this is the market. This is all the advertisements, all the stuff they put out there in the world, not just Texas, but every state that's pushed this, is we're going to help families get better schools. 87% of them, no change. No change in actual academic outcome. I don't know. I feel like I got to say it 8 more times because they knew this going into it. Okay. And this finding is consistent nationally, all right? Because in September of 2025, there was a report by the National Center for Research and Education, Access and Choice. That's a mouthful, right? Found that the universal voucher programs raised private school enrollment by only like 3 to 4%. And the vast majority of vouchers were recipients already in it. So 3 to 4% is not a big push. $1 billion for 3 to 4%. Just if you believe in vouchers so much and you believe that that is the hallmark of success and awesomeness, you only want it to help 3 to 4%? Make it help 100%. What the hell's the matter with you? Like, that just seems stupid to me. All right. And then researchers at Rice University's, this was in Houston's Education Research Consortium, had to write that one down too, said the income tiers in Texas allowed up to 20% of the funds to go to families earning over 500% of the federal poverty line, which I think equates to like $160,000 for a family of 4, right? So that's not a low income. So, okay, now I want to be fair. The University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs released a report a couple weeks ago that projected that the short-term impact on public school enrollment will be modest. Well, yeah, that's true. You're in a public school right now. You're not going to lose a ton of students, 3 to 4% right now, which could 3 to 4% on your budgets actually could be a lot of money. So I don't know what they mean by modest, but 3 to 4% movement, that's a lot of ching-ching. That's a lot of money, right? Now, so they're right, but it just moves $1 billion out of public school. So let's That seems like a lot of money. So they're now suggest that, there's going to be up to a 2% enrollment decline for most districts in year one. But remember, that $1 billion goes to $7 billion in a few years, right? So we got to watch that. So some districts, this Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs said that some districts see as much as 5%. And so I want to be fair is that the fiscal doomsday scenario that requires the legislature substantially increasing funding in all future sessions may or may not come for a couple years. But I predict it's coming. I think most people predict it's coming. Okay. So, but here's what the data doesn't really capture. And here's what I want you to really pay attention to is it's not just the number of children who leave. Again, it's which children are leaving. When a school choice program launches, the families with the highest engagement, the most resources, the most options are the first movers. Always. And this is the same with voters in any city or government. The ones that can leave when things go south do. The ones that can't. There's an old adage that people vote with their taillights. No, they don't. The people with the means vote with their taillights. The people with the means vote with their taillights. Not everybody, all right? So the people that have the social capital to navigate applications, admissions, timelines, enrollment processes will leave. And many private schools in Texas closed their fall 2026 application in December and January, months before families even knew if they were approved for the TEFA funds. So the timeline structurally is a disadvantage for low-income families, and we really won't see the impact on everyone, not this year, but the year after. So think, 2027, 2028, right? So at least that's my analysis of this, right? Because if the applications were due sooner and they didn't know, they can't commit to going to the private school, might not even have known they could get a voucher until it became public, which they might not have known because people are busy, right? So here's the part that at least bothers me. And it should, I think, bother everyone, regardless of where you stand politically. So tired of political parties. We should be in alignment here. Everyone should be trying to help the children that are in the United States right now. I mean, this doesn't seem like a big push to me, but I'm a crazy person, I guess. Okay, so here's what I think should bother everyone, regardless of where you stand politically. Private schools in Texas that accept TEFA funds are not required to accept all students. They are not required. There's no legal mandate that says you have to take the first 100 applications. You have to take every third one. You have to take a mix of low income. Nope, not in there. I got one kind of dumb story, I guess, because it just enrages me. I think I've told it before, but I'm going to tell it again because I think it's needed, which is I was talking with some families that their district was right next door to a very urban district, and they were more of a suburban district. The suburban moms were like, our schools are better, and we only fund them at $13,000, where the urban right next door is $17,000, and they're terrible. I mean, that was the whole premise. No school takeovers, leave us alone, borders, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, hold on. Do you read to your child? Yes. Cool. Do you ever take your child to the zoo? Yes. You take them to a museum? Yes. Do you ever talk to them at dinner? Yes. Can you afford a tutor? Yes. Right? And I'm doing a poll, like a hand-raised poll of this like PTA of like, I don't know, a couple hundred people, and they were raising their hands. And I was not there for anything particular. I was there for, I can't remember what I was there for, but this just kind of impromptu. And I said, so the parents, because you're affluent, you have money. So your child's education is not the $13,000. It's $13,000 plus everything else you do and add to it. So the combined resources for that child, and we kind of did some chicken scratch math, was over $20,000, right? Because grandma bought them a book and they read the book, and that book, $5, $8, I don't, whatever it is, they go on trips, they get to see the world. They can talk to people, they can get tutors. I go, the children in the city are in poverty. They're impoverished. Most of them do not even live with literally, I mean, I can't say most, lots and lots of them don't even live with one of their parents. They live with a grandparent. And the grandparent's already struggling. And most of the children over there, moms, dads, are worried about eating that night. The kids are worried about whether or not their power is going to be on. They're not getting a zoo trip unless the school takes them. They're not going to see a museum unless the school takes them, right? They're not going on a family vacation. There's no vacation. And I hate this stupid comment of, well, they need to raise themselves up with their bootstraps. They don't have no boots, man. They don't have no boots to raise up. Wake up. They don't have any boots. So that the $17,000 was the entire education dollar that child's going to get. That's it. So you're actually giving your children more. And the point is it's not a damn competition. It's how do we get all the children to the finish line? How do we get them all to the finish line? And some need more resources because they're in more need. Or you, rich folk, are going to be paying for them as an adult for the rest of your life. So pick. Pay for it now or pay for it later. But right now, you could say, I don't want to do either. You're going to. Because governments don't shrink. They grow. I'm really trying to stay on topic right now, Elizabeth. I really, really am, because I get so enraged about people that don't understand. Bureaucracies never stagnate or reduce. They grow or they die. Not one or the other. They grow, they grow, they grow. You are never going to be paying. You might get your tax rate cut, but you're going to be paying more in taxes. And the government's going to continue to add more social programs, whether you like it or not. I don't like all the social programs. I think there's waste. I think there's a lack of accountability. Duh. But I still want as many children as possible to be productive members that pour into our economy than take away. And if we treat them like little competitive notions and we don't give them the resources, they're always going to be on our dole. They're always going to be on the government dole. So I digress. Okay, so it should bother you. And I should say this. I'm going to say private schools don't have to take all students. And they don't have to take students with disabilities. They can, but they don't have to. And they don't have to meet the same academic accountability standards either. And they don't have to publish their financing. 88% of Texas voters, according to a 2023 Charles Butt Foundation poll, said that if the private schools take public money, they should publicly report all school financing. I think our national poll that we did last year said something very similar. We did a nationwide poll and it was close to 80, but it wasn't over 80. But it said, if you take taxpayer money, you should be transparent. You should be open. Why did they add that to the law? If you take $1 of vouchers, let us know what everyone gets paid. I want to know what that superintendent gets paid. I want to know what the teachers get paid. I want to know what else they're doing. I want to know where else the money, I want to know where the money's going. It's my money. Or if you don't want to do that, just don't take vouchers, dude. Do what you did last year. So it's a consensus of people in Texas and nationally think if you're going to take a voucher, you ought to report your finances and be transparent. Why didn't they write that in the law? Okay, maybe we can adjust it. All right. So let me give you the other side. I want to be as diplomatic as I can. Obviously, I'm pretty heated up, but let's lawyer up here. Let's just look at the facts and let's give the pro-choice argument its moment. All right. So, and I do want to be honest. There are legitimate arguments on both sides, on the pro-choice side, on the not pro-choice side, and I want to give them their full due. All right. So voucher supporters argue that competing improves all schools. It should in theory. I think they're right. That when public schools have to compete for students, they do get better. Well, there's a problem with that because people don't want traditional public schools to compete. I want to think about that. So let's free them up to compete, right? And there's some evidence for that. It says there's some evidence, and I pulled up this 2025 Urban Institute study on Ohio voucher program that found that students who use vouchers are significantly more likely to enroll in college. 45% compared to 30%. But does anybody see the flaw in that data? Does anybody see the flaw? Because the flaw is pretty obvious to me. They're already going to private schools. They already had money. Duh. Now you're just getting a voucher on top of it. Only 3 to 4% transition. I can't believe I didn't think about this study when I pulled it up early. This study is garbage because they're missing the main thing, which is only 3 to 4% new people are even using vouchers in these states. So it's the same people that had money to begin with. So duh. And obviously the person that goes through all the hoops to complete a voucher program is a little bit more organized, probably has a little bit more research, have a bigger family component, a better team around them, right? So I think I was supposed to give the other side, but it's just, so there's a lot of different polls and surveys out there. And you got to be real careful with data because, like, I think it wasn't Mark Twain that said lies, damn lies, and statistics, which is, worse, right? Because fundamentally they can say, well, 15% more people that got vouchers went to college versus people that didn't. Yeah, but it's just people that know how to apply for vouchers and they were already going to private schools and they were already to go anyway. So I don't think that's a solid baseline. I'm doing the best seeing both sides, but apparently I'm getting too far away from my litigation days to be balanced. So supporters also argue that parental choice is a fundamental right, that no child should be trapped in a failing school because of the zip code. Totally agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. And that argument just totally resonates with me. And as a psychologist and a parent, as a dad, I totally understand this. We want people to do what's right for their families, but we got to take care. If schools are a public good, we got to take care of all the kids, not just select kids. Okay. And the EdChoice organization also argues that voucher programs actually save taxpayer money long-term because the per student voucher award is less than the full per pupil. And that is true. We saw that in Texas. The average $14,000. So vouchers are only 10. So yeah, that's a taxpayer savings. But once again, we're going to spend the money now. We're going to spend it later. Okay. Like you're going to save money temporarily, but then that child who's doesn't know how to do anything becomes an adult, still doesn't know how to do anything. Medicare, Medicaid, just whatever, all, foods, whatever they need to live, we're going to pay for it because we're a great country. We're not going to let them starve. We're going to do it. And it's going to cost more money than if they were a productive member of society. Okay. So anyway, I think in theory that competition should improve education, but it's got to be fair competition. And I'm going to break down, I'm giving a speech on my latest book. It's not late anymore. It's been out for a year, on a level playing field, on what schools need to do to truly make it a level playing field so we can compete fairly. I think we need to get there because if we competed fairly, it could rise all ships. But I don't think that, Texas as it's laid out right now is fair and equitable in all kinds of ways to let everyone compete fairly, right? And Texas is not an isolated experiment. It's the largest and most visible version of this national movement that's reshaping public education in real time, for sure. And $1 billion in 1 year up to 7.9 in 2031 is huge. And, but 87% are expected recipients already go to private school. So it's a financial impact, but I don't know if it's a children impact. And I think we need to do children impacts, right? And there's no transparency requirements, no university accountability standards. And so we really don't know what the full effects are going to be because it's not even launched yet. And that's the honest answer. I don't know. Nobody knows. But we do know that the experiment is large and it deserves a lot of scrutiny, a lot of transparency, and honest accountability. And it's not just for the children who leave, but it's for the children that stay. I'm going to keep watching Texas closely. I'm going to start digging into some other states as we go. I hope this wasn't too dry. If this is too dry, let me know, man. If this was too much data, let me know. Post it up on one of our many social. What are some of the, give one or two, Elizabeth? We
have our Instagram, our LinkedIn, and our Facebook.
What are the handles? Hold on. Are there handles for that stuff?
Yes.
What is it? Is that what you kids call them, handles?
Yes.
Okay. What's a handle?
CAISA K-12.
Oh, that's it. Oh,
that's it.
In cases, CAISSA. K as in kindergarten, 12. All right. Hey, I appreciate it, everybody. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep our eyes open. All right. Bye.